listening to the Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are a part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen. Hello and welcome back to the Motherhood Experience, friends. I'm your host, Val Kleppen. Before I do the introduction to this episode, I keep forgetting to do this, so while I'm remembering, I'm just going to put it out there. Will you please share the Motherhood Experience podcast? Whether you're on Facebook, we're at the Motherhood Experience podcast on Facebook. Instagram is _ the Motherhood Experience. If you follow us there, you can certainly share those profiles out. You can share the episode via text message or whatever with your friends. We would just love, and when I say we, I guess I'm talking about me and my multiple personalities, would love for you to share the podcast with people that you think would enjoy it. So thank you so much. And now I am thrilled to be able to introduce my guest to you, Ashley Toops. Ashley and I met several years ago at church, and I think we kind of touched on it in the episode, but I thought that she was Miss Popular and didn't want anything to do with me, and she ended up thinking, like, why is Val always ignoring me? I would love for her to come over and be my friend. So it was just kind of, eventually we got to talking to each other and really enjoyed one another's company. And we have not connected in a few years. So to be able to connect with her on the podcast was so much fun. Ashley is an incredible ball of energy, and I really think you'll enjoy this episode. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce you to my guest and friend, Ashley Toops. Ashley, I am so grateful you agreed to join me on the Motherhood Experience. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. It's so good to see your face. It's been a while.
It really has been like a long while. I
Yeah.
think 6 years a while.
Yeah, you moved and then we moved and everybody moved. So I like to start every episode with ages and stages of kids and motherhood. So why don't you run down the list for me?
Well, hey, I'm almost 40. I turned 40 in like 2 weeks. So there's my age and I'm in this stage of motherhood.
You are the first guest who has shared your own age. I love that so much. Of course it would be you.
Well, all my kids, I always wanted to have all my kids before I turned 30, and I did that. So I had all my kids before I turned 30, but I have 4 kids. I have 3 boys and a girl. I'll start with my youngest. My youngest just turned 10, Jet. Then I have a 12-year-old, Trip. Cora May is 13 and Link is 14. So quick recap, my kids are 10, 12, 13, 14. So, definitely just bunch that all right together. And it's a beautiful stage. Every year I say, wow, I like this stage better. Like, they're wiping their butts, they're making their own sandwiches, and we're going to have a driver. I'm like, they're going to drive their own cars. And now I'm like, wait, whoa. But I love this stage. I love having 4 kids. I wish I would have had.
You wish you would have had what?
I wish I would have had more.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about the names of your kids, because it's not every day that you hear names like Link, Trip, Jet, and Cora even. So how did those names come about?
Well, that came about from a marital dispute, a little spar with my husband, if you will. So, my husband and I dated from first date to marriage was like less than 6 months. So there was some of those conversations that you maybe would have that we didn't have. And then we got married, then I got pregnant, and I was like, and I knew my husband's name was George the Third. He's the third.
Okay.
But in my brain, everything happened. So we were so in love. We had to get married. I was like, wait, I have to name my firstborn son George the Fourth. Whoa. Like, I'm not naming my son George after you and your father and your grandfather. I was like, wait, well, that was an argument that I did not win. And I actually think at one point there might have been tears involved. Like, I was like emotional. I am like, I am not naming my son George. That was 14 years ago, where you didn't hear those names a lot. Now you actually hear Hank and George, and you hear a little bit more. But back then it was not happening. So I had loved the name Lincoln, and that was just kind of our compromise. So my husband goes by Skip, but he is George the Third, but he's been Skip since birth. So just a nickname is all it is. And so my son Link, he's George Allen Toops the Fourth. but his nickname, nothing official. It's not on an official document. We just went with Link. We thought it was a good nickname. And then wouldn't you believe it? He's like a third grader in school learning how to write penmanship. And he comes home and instead of writing Link at the top of his papers, he writes George Ellen Toops the fourth. Loves it. Loves it. Thinks it's the greatest thing ever. Like doesn't want to go by Link. He's like George Ellen Toops. I'm like, okay. So that was Link. That was my 14-year-old. Then Cora was going to be Nora, but I have so many first cousins. I think I have like 42 first cousins. And right before, you have to like your cousins, your family, you kind of got to go through the names, like who's, because it just gets to be too many. And those are the people you see every year at reunions and family weddings. So my cousin named their daughter Nora. And I was kind of a little like, thanks a lot, guys. Not that I had communicated with them at all.
Right.
I was like, oh, my name. So we went with Cora. And then May is my mom's middle name. So Trip is the one I get the most like, oh, Trip. He's the one I get the most like kind of side eyes, like, oh, well, okay. People want to kind of comment on names. They don't want to go, oh, He's the one I get that. I don't want it to be spelled like the word TRIP. So we just put another P at the end. And I don't know. At this point, I had a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. Okay. So I had just had 2 kids in less than 2 years. Do you think my brain was working right? Do you think I was sleeping? Do you think I was sitting with coffee looking through a baby name book? Like, no, I was frazzled. I don't even remember doing it to be pregnant with a third, honestly. Probably had my socks on. Like, none of that made sense. So, whatever, that's what his name is. We love it. He loves it. I still get like the side eyes and I'm like, you know what, have your own kids, name them what you want, like stay out of my business. It is
right.
So he is Trip Martin after my grandpa. And then Jet was another nickname we had talked about for Link, because we started off like our whole baby naming discussion started off around nicknames because we didn't get the choice. The choice of naming my child was taken away from me. Okay.
Yeah.
It started off on nicknames. So it was like Link. We talked about Jet as a nickname. Ace, it had to be a nickname. So then all my kids kind of are more like nicknames. They're just like the one syllable.
You had your own family of Top Gun characters, basically.
Exactly. So we ended it with Jet, and he's our wild child. And he, you know what? That's their names. I'm sticking to it. My decision making with the during that time was poor. Okay, I was tired. And that's who they are, and they all love their names. And another Jet. There is another Trip. There are other kids named these names. Okay.
Okay.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
And I remember Jet being kind of your wild child, always climbing.
Still always climbing.
On everything.
Yes, he is my adventurous. We always say he's the youngest, he's 10. But if we had to drop off all of our children in the deep wilderness, like completely alone, like that show Alone, yeah, he would be just fine. He's not scared of the dark. He's not scared of a bear. He goes barefoot everywhere he goes. The bottom of his feet are like, he could step on a nail and the nail would just plop right off of his foot. He's like a bear class. He's not worried about anything. Like I am still scared of the dark as an adult woman, and he ain't scared of nothing. It's like, and he still climbs, and I don't know, lots of prayers going up for little Jet Man. And he just turned 10 last week. We celebrated.
Yeah, all of them are in the double digits now. I can't believe that. I was trying, like, I remember Jet walking and still in diapers, but walking. I don't remember him as a baby. When did you start going to Salem?
Oh, okay. So when did we start going we moved to Moorhead, Minnesota, when Link was 4. So it would have been like when he was like 5 or 6, I suppose. It took 6 months to find a church. That's probably normal.
Yeah.
But we were there for a while. Like all my young childbearing years were at Salem in Moorhead with my Moorhead friends. And actually that's something I miss now. Like we kind of moved away from that. But the bonds you get with the motherhoods, with mothers when you're kind of in the trenches, when you're pregnant, when you're nursing, when you're pregnant, when you're nursing.
Yeah.
That stage and that bond you get is different.
Yeah.
Than when you're older. Because I didn't go through that here. We moved to a small town, Minnesota, 6 years ago. So when Jet was 4, we moved. So haven't seen him since he's 4.
I know. Oh my goodness. I was remembering how I think there was one Sunday where I can't remember. We must have been picking up our kids from Sunday school, and there was some talk about, needing a teacher or something, and you had said, "Well, I'm pretty sure all of the moms can just take turns. Like we'd be okay with that, right?" And you looked at me and I was like, "No."
Like, no, I'm dropping the mom. See you later. Oh, I was volunteering moms.
Yeah.
That is one thing. I do enjoy like being in the Sunday school class. Like I volunteer at school all the time. Just yesterday, I got called by the school to be a like last minute para sub because they're so low on numbers for
Wow.
helpers. And I'm like, sure, come. And I enjoy it when I'm there, but I do have like a moment when I get home where I'm like, why am I signing up? Why did I do that? Like, what am I doing here? I'm in the sweet spot where all my kids walk out the door and then I work from home quietly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so
But
funny.
yeah, sorry about that. Sorry to voluntold you. Is that what they
Well,
call it? Voluntold
well, yeah.
you?
It ended like I think Sarah, who was in the room at the time, I think she knew me well enough to be like, yeah, we're not gonna ask Val.
Oh man.
But
Well, I never
I
got
do.
fired. It must have been either they were desperate or they really, or I did an okay job because they never like removed me from those rooms. They let me volunteer. Oh,
It's just so funny because you were so sweet and like, we got this. You were all excited, and I was like, Ashley, don't.
well, maybe I was actually coming from a place of fear, thinking if we don't all take a week, then we don't have this program, and I need to drop my kids off. So,
Oh, sure.
like, I
That
don't
could have
know.
been
Who
too.
knows?
That could have been. I
I'm
remember too how you said like we had only been going for the same amount of time, but I thought that you had been going to church for way longer and that you were like Miss Popular. And so I never really approached you. And you said that you thought like the same thing about me, like, oh, there's Val. She's too good to talk to me.
Like, why are you coming over here? I need a friend. Oh, I remember that. I
Yeah.
remember.
That's
Oh,
well, I guess it's a good lesson for all of us on assumptions, right?
and I
On
think I'm
assumptions.
just so loud. Like I come across loud because, well, because am loud and I'm always talking or whatever, and
Yeah.
then super smiley. So sometimes people think that if you're super smiley, you're so confident and you must know everyone. But that is actually, I get more smiley and more loud when I feel uncomfortable. Where I'm like, okay, I don't know where
Okay.
I'm from and where should I stand? Okay, hi everyone, because I'm like, ah. I'm learning that more and more about myself as adult, like with forming friendships now in my late 30s and 40s. Like, and that's a whole nother podcast, I guess, like women friendships. I could talk about it forever. But yeah, it's a struggle. So anyway, I'm glad we pushed through.
Me too, Ashley. Me too. I am wearing a an OG. It's part
Oh,
of one of your necklaces,
oh.
I think. But so tell me about this though, because you started doing it's Park Lane jewelry on the
Yeah.
side just as like once in a while. And then all of a sudden you just became like one of the top people in the company. And how did that pan out? And how did it affect your mothering? Because you were a stay at home mom just looking for something to do, right?
Correct.
All right. So walk me through that.
Yeah. So I right away when I had my first, my second, my third kid, I knew I wanted to be home with them. Part of it, it just made sense because daycare costs for a 0, 1, 2-year-old, like, that made sense. And my heart's desire was to be in the home too. I grew up with a mother in the home and I wanted that desperately. So, and I was banging out kids left and right. So it just, I was like, okay, here I am. But I didn't know. I had always been a part of a club, intramural sports, like really surrounded by a lot of that my whole life too. And I enjoyed the business side of things. I enjoy, I don't know, like marketing and sales and business and checking my email. And like, I, there was, I don't know, when you're in the trenches, and I hate to call it the trenches, those are some of the best years of my life. But when I have a 1, 2, and a 3-year-old, and my husband comes home from work and you're just crying on the kitchen floor, and he's like, how was your day? And you're like, it was good. Like the day was actually great. Like nothing was wrong with the day. It's just like,
It's so much.
it's so much. And I remember getting invited to this jewelry party online. And there was a necklace called the Havana. It was $79. or maybe $69. Regardless, it was too many dollars, right? That's too many dollars for one piece of jewelry. And I was like, right, my husband was a first year teacher, okay, at Moorhead. I would think was pregnant with my fourth baby, and he was a first year teacher. So I probably don't need to share what first year teachers make, but let's just say it's under $30,000 a year. Okay, first year teacher. So I'm home, like, I don't remember like feeling like we were poor. And now when I look back at those like tax returns, I'm like, we were so poor. We literally had nothing. But I didn't feel like that. I just knew I couldn't buy a $70 necklace. I couldn't go through the Starbucks, not even the McDonald's. I wasn't going through McDonald's drive-through to get coffee. We were just living simply at our house.
Right.
Well, I go to this jewelry party online and I see this necklace at $79. I'm not buying it. But I see for 99, for a little bit more, I could actually join the business and you get like $400 worth of jewelry. So in my brain, like the business side, I was like, for 20 more dollars, I get more jewelry. And then I can use this as gifts, which actually saves my family money because now I have a gift for my sister, my mom, and for Christmas gifts. Because like buying Christmas gifts back then, we didn't spend a lot.
Right.
So in my brain, I was like, and I remember talking to my husband Skip and saying for 99, I'm going to get 6 gifts and I have this business. And I wasn't going to do much with it. It was just going to be a really fun little side thing, a reason to check my email, like, check my email, which is a silly thing. But when you're a stay-at-home mom and you're cooking lunch and you're changing a diaper and you're nursing and you're changing that, like checking your email was like a luxury. Like, oh, I'm fancy today. I have to check my email.
For
like,
sure.
I like so fancy because I was a mom that had to check my email. Normally you don't. Like, that's how it's just a simple life. But so I joined this business. I do actually, a friend of ours, Emily, I can't remember if you were at my first ever show at Emily Willow's house.
No.
It was only my Bible study friends because my biggest fear was, oh my gosh, all my friends are from church. They're from Bible study. We don't even spend $30 on our jeans. Like, we don't shop like that. We go to Bible study, then we go to Costco and get the $1.99 hot dogs. And that's like our lunch we have with the kids. I remember just the fear of like, I don't have friends that spend $50 on necklaces. That's not a normal thing in our life. But I pushed through. My friend Emily from Bible study had my first show. I remember getting home, like doing all this stuff and being like, I just made $179. And I hung out with my Bible study friends, and now we're all going to get cute and wear them like to Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
And I felt so good, like something like awoke. And I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, I can do this, and I can not have to give up, being out of the home. Cause that was my highest desire. And my highest calling right from the Lord was to be that presence in my, children's lives.
Right.
So, now I'm like the crazy jewelry lady. I'm doing that. I've been doing it full time all through then. Like, my kids don't know anything else. They just think I sell jewelry from my house. And that's what I do. And I turned it into a better income than what teachers can make. So,
which is so crazy. Because I remember you talking about like meals you would make and even things you would get for your home, either thrifting or garage sale, and you would try to like not make them over, but make them maybe a little nicer. And yeah, I remember you talking about penny pinching all the time. And then it just went.
I used to barter.
Yeah.
That was a huge thing in Fargo Moorhead. It's not here in my small town, but there was a barter page where you literally barter like 7 rolls of toilet paper for a $5 gift card to Arby's. I did stuff like that. I was like meeting people in the parking lots to barter. Like, I had some leftover formula that hadn't been used, like that's what we were doing during that. And I don't remember thinking, oh, we're so poor, but now I'm like, we were poor.
Yeah. I don't ever remember you kind of, portraying that either, but there definitely was like, we've got to make this stretch. Like, we've got to make the most with what we've got because there is no more coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Skip is also a coach. And I would love to hear about what it is like to be a coach's wife, but also have your kids with a father who's a coach. What is that like?
That's a loaded question. it depends on what type of coach he's being that day to affect how I think he is being with the kids. So Skip's amazing. I knew he was a coach when I married him, so this isn't anything new. He was very disciplined when we were dating. He's a very disciplined man. He's a very like pain and pressure are good things for teaching your children and their soul and putting them in high pressure situations and pushing them to their max is like, that's just how he is as a coach. He's an amazing coach, actually. So he's a wrestling coach, which also wrestling coaches are different than the typical basketball, baseball. They're just like a whole different subculture of people in general, right? I don't even know how to explain it. It's just wrestling coaches. They're all little, like, okay. Well, so he's that. And he always he thinks it's his like ongoing joke when he says, because people always, we have 3 boys now and he's a head wrestling coach and that's just in his blood. It literally like it's one of his callings, his life is to coach. And because he found the Lord through athletics, that's when,
Sure.
he felt the Holy Spirit. That's when he came to know the Lord. And he feels like that's his calling. So it's more than sports. I think we get the world says, oh, we put so much emphasis on sports, but to him, sports and the Lord are like the same thing.
Right.
By God and all you do. But he always makes the jokes when our 3 boys, they say, well, are you going to be wrestlers? And Skip goes, well, I gave them the choice. They have a choice if they don't want to wrestle, but they can either choose to wrestle or choose a new place to live. He always, like joke I've heard like 30 times whenever we're visiting with people. Like, well, they don't have to wrestle, but don't they have to choose a new place to live? So he's pretty, but the great thing about it is because of how his relationship is with our children, he's so invested, he's so hands-on. They want to, they are choosing to, not because they're like, my dad's making me, and I think because of how he has his time with the kids and spends time with the kids and how he's showing the sport to them, they're all in. They're like all in. Do they all like him being his coach? My oldest loves it. My middle one doesn't know any different. And Jet, no, Jet and Skip. And I actually am here for it. I'm like popcorn. I can watch this all day because my 10-year-old can unravel his dad. And like they can go play catch and 3 minutes later, Skip is slamming the door, coming inside saying, I'll never play catch with that kid again. And I'm just like eating the popcorn. Like, this is hilarious. But yeah, I mean, they don't really have a choice. Their dad is their coach. So it's all they know, but he coaches, he maxes out potential. I hate to say coaches like to win because it's not about winning. It's about maxing out your potential, giving God the glory in all you do and pushing through. Like Skip will say he could do a whole podcast on like the mental toughness of kids, like crippling anxiety and lots of fear and lots of like training and teaching your kids as parents to push through and strengthen their mind. Not just their soul and their heart, but it's our job to parent them to strengthen their mind. And let me tell you, he is doing that. And sometimes it is hills for 3 miles. And that's through physical blood, sweat, and tears. I don't know, my heart, the mom wants to be like, oh, are you okay? Are you, but I just have to sit back and I trust him and his leadership of our family. But there's been times like they roll his eyes at him and he has them go run a mile in the rain. Like, I mean, it's for real. But he is training up respectful, young men of the Lord. And it's actually a beautiful thing to sit back and watch. Do I sometimes want to be like, sorry, your dad's so hard on you? Like, we love you. Yeah, I definitely do want to be like that. But yeah, I think him being a coach is harder on me than it is the kids. In the stands with the other parents. I think you lost audio because I can't hear you.
Nope, I just didn't push my mute button. I was going to say that's an interesting perspective because you're cheering for your kids on one hand, and then also you have to hear all the commentary of the other parents on the other hand. That you have a foot in both worlds.
It's tough. So I actually, it's easier sometimes because it's just like normal banter on the sidelines of a baseball game for parents to just talk about the kid, the coach, like, why is he putting that guy in? Who's in that field? Why did he make that decision? Why did he just yell at my kid? Like that's just normal. It's not like they're picking on my husband, but that's normal to kind of talk about the coach. And I've been in this world for so long. I just kind of remove myself, which is hard. I'm like Miss Social. Right. But in high stress, big games, I'll just kind of sit a little bit further down or higher in the stands or
Well,
something.
there's probably also another dynamic altogether because where you live is a pretty small town. So
Correct.
like there's nobody who doesn't know who you are, like that you're the coach's wife, right?
Yeah, no one. Everyone knows everything about you, which is a beautiful thing. We love living here. What some of the best advice I could give anyone in life is just pack up your kids and spread out, move somewhere small. Like you
Yeah.
won't regret it. We didn't
Yeah.
know a single soul when we moved here. But we knew we wanted to raise our kids where they can just roam like wild chickens, and roam they do. Uh, and it's just, yeah, it's if you never lived in a small town, you don't know what that's like. And there's definitely pros and cons. One being, yeah, they know everything about you. Like when you moved in here, they would all look at me like, is she the new coach's wife? And they
Hmm.
already, have their list of everything about you, but you don't know them. And
Right.
you're like, just want to make a friend here. Like,
Right.
I just need one friend. But yeah, so he still coaches. He's head wrestling coach. He coaches football and he coaches baseball. So with having only one daughter, that's made it a little tricky. Feelings within the home of who dad spends time with and why he's so
Mm.
invested into three of our son's sports and not hers. When hopefully my boys don't watch this, but she's probably my best natural athlete of
Oh,
the four.
wow.
She's like, so she's kind of she just jumps higher, runs faster, and moves like more naturally.
Yeah.
And then dad doesn't coach any of her sports, volleyball, basketball, track. So that's a dynamic you have to deal with in your home. And then because he's always coaching, he can't be a spectator at her sports either.
Mm.
He's always in season, so he never can go to her. So that's always, and then my boys could care less. They don't know who's in the stands. My daughter's like, looking. So it's so that's something we navigate as a family and always have to be, just mindful of as we're raising them all. Cause, 10, 12, 13, 14, it's like they're all in competition for everything at any moment. And then
Right.
my husband's a highly competitive man in everything he does. I would say I am even worse than him. He just beats me in everything. So I've kind of had to like slow my roll. Like we played Yahtzee one time and we slept in separate bedrooms. Like I was, Yahtzee 100% game of chance, like no involved. And I literally threw the Yahtzee, like we were not joking. I was not joking. I was pissed.
I think there are so many married couples though that could say the same thing. I remember Brent and I used to have friends who would invite us over to game night just to watch us fight. Like that was their game, watching Brent and Val.
Feel like I've kind of see you two fight about something competitive before. I feel like I've been a part of
Oh,
that.
no doubt. No doubt.
Oh, yeah. It's
So
a highly competitive household. Let's put it that way.
I have to ask also with Skip being a wrestling coach, the wrestlers that I went to high school with, like when we get together with them, which it's been, 25 years since I graduated, they still like they see one another and they just start wrestling. They're in their 40s. Is that like, is that a thing? Or is that just like where I'm from?
That would be a thing. I believe it is. But I mean, kind of like because wrestling doesn't need equipment or it doesn't need a special, you don't have to, if you put a whole bunch of basketball players somewhere where a basketball hoop was and there's a basketball on the floor, they're probably going to pick it up and start shooting hoops, right? If you put football players on a football, even if they're 40-year-old men and you have a football lane there, they're probably going to start playing a game. Wrestling is just, you don't need any equipment. And you have, the technical side, the moves, you
Yeah.
know, so it's like, it just happens. It's like we have a wrestling mat in my house, Val, in the basement. Like it's in the
Okay,
house.
okay, but that's one thing. And basketball is on a court, football is on a field, but it's like we're in people's homes and it's like, please don't break their furniture or their shelves, or like, do you have to wrestle in their living room?
I feel this deeper than you know, Val. Because literally the wear and tear on our carpet, it's not normal. Like I've had these conversations, like grown 40-year-old men don't roll around on their carpet every night for an hour and a half with three sons where they're 3-on-1, like the wear, I'm like, go somewhere else. Like you're ruining my carpet. But yet I try not to get, I always try to flip that off and say, look at my husband spending all this time with his sons, but then sometimes Ashley comes out. That's like, if you break my lamp, like you're all out of here. All of you are gone. I don't know. It's like depends on which Ashley is showing up. If I'm a little bit more frazzled that day, it's like wrestling better be downstairs.
Right.
But
Right.
it's a whole nother level of chaos. And they're all getting bigger. And it's actually kind of funny. My 14-year-old is almost as tall as his dad. And now it's like Skip has to be like, oh, don't you try to man up on me. Like, because when they stand, they're almost like eyeball to eyeball.
Yeah.
Like something's gonna happen. Like I'm like, don't fight our son. Just try to man him up here. Like settle down. Let him grow. Like he's allowed to grow. He might be bigger than you. So I think the wrestling when they're little, not too many of them turn into fights. They just wrestle and they all laugh and giggle and there's a lot of like inappropriate butts and with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
household, right? But as I get older, I feel like the wrestling turns into like fist fighting. Like they get a little
Mm,
the competitive juices. They're like,
yeah.
we'll see if I survive. I don't know. I'll look over at Cora and we'll be like, let's get out of here.
So
Let's go inside.
you mentioned about living in a small town, being a coach's wife, all of this. Are your other mom friends in that small town, are they with the same age kids as you because of school activities? Is it church friends? What is the dynamic kind of? I mean, I'm sure you have people from each group, but what's really the dynamic of it for you?
So that is one of my biggest, like, where you just know that God's looking down on you and he's got you and he kind of gives you a nod of affirmation in your life and he sees you. Because when Skip, we loved our life in Moorhead. He was
Yeah.
like back to back to back state championships. So things were going great in the coaching world, in the teaching world. We were so plugged into our church, more plugged in than I felt ever. Actually, we haven't got that feeling back.
Mm,
Really plugged into Bible study, really feeling like we knew lots of different groups of people and people we could pray with. And actually, it wasn't just church to us. It was more extended family. So when he was like, hey, we're moving our kids small, I remember being like, no, we love it here. We don't want to move.
yeah.
And being like, I'm moving to a town of 1,000. I've never heard of a person that lives there. I had never driven down the main street. People who live here are people who are born and raised generations. Like they have 16 children and they all stayed here and they all, right? So I'm like the girl that doesn't belong. And
Mm,
to some extent, 6 years later, I still am. Like I'm not from here.
mm-hmm,
Right. And that's okay, which is strange for me. But I can deal with that as long as my kids have the experience they're having.
mm-hmm.
But one of the biggest nods of affirmation was of all the places and all there was only 3 houses on the market actually when we were moving here to a small town. So we just had 3 choices. Like, you want this one, or this one? And the house we moved into are
Mm.
down the street, like the neighborhood of it are some of the most faith-filled women with very similar ages. So one has, and having 4 kids in a small town is like nothing. People are like, when are you having the rest of them? Like in Moorhead, people are like, 4 kids. And I
Right.
kept having a kid year after year. Around here, like 5, 6, 7, or 8 kids is more normal. Like
Wow.
I'm like below average with how many kids we're having. Because it's just more of a simple life. It's easier. Like that's why I'm like, oh, I should have had more kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm 40, but that's failed. Skips over it. Skips over it. So it was a huge blessing, the neighborhood that God like put us in. There's that verse in Acts. It's like someday we'll go to Judea and Jerusalem and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. And we always joke like this is our last stop. Like we were in Moorhead, we were in our Samaria, we were doing God's ministry, we were loving, people as we went. And I was like, this has to be the ends of the earth. Which is so funny because it's years, it's a town of 1,000, not a stoplight. But to me, I'm like, this is where our ministry is planted and we want it to grow deep and we want to, but with saying that, you just never know what God's going to do or say.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so it has been a blessing. Some of the women and the ages of the kids. And yeah.
I love that. What a redemptive story. Because I remember you were kind of heart. You were like you embraced it.
Mhm.
You were going to move, but you were kind of heartbroken to leave behind everything that you had built there in Moorhead. But sometimes when you least expect it, the Lord is like, and now it's time to move.
I know. Beware, beware.
Like when Brent came upstairs and said, "Where do you want to move to in 2020?" And I was like, I don't. I kind of like it here. I don't want to move. And that now here we are. And I wouldn't change it for anything. So I love that. Well, Ashley, as we wrap up our time here, if people want to maybe host an online jewelry party or get to know you more, What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, first of all, in the town I live in, you just come right in. Nobody locks the doors. So you just drive by, you come right on in, and it just I learned, like, I locked my door one time and I got in trouble. The neighbor's like, I was trying to put some veggies in your door and your door was locked. I was like, oh, do we not do that here? So just come on over. But otherwise, I have a Facebook page. I have Instagram. I'm Mama Toops over at Instagram. I guess I'll just stick with that one to connect with you, but I will give you my phone number, my email, all the things you need. I love to chat more than about jewelry too, because jewelry is silly. It's fun, right? But it's all of that. But
Right.
yeah, so I don't know how to get that to you digitally, but reach
Well,
out to Val. She's got my number.
that's right. That's right. And I'll put the link to your Instagram in the show notes so anyone can just click right on it and be taken to your Instagram page, and that's how they can connect with you there. Ashley, thank you so much for talking with me about your motherhood journey. I've enjoyed it.
Well, we're still on it. We'll see. We lose a tire anytime soon.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head over to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow the Motherhood Experience on Facebook or Instagram, and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.